brought me back 50, you turned the clock back 50 years right now. I almost felt like I was ready to run towards the ring. But of course, it's only a dream at this stage of my life. I'm an old man today. But when I headlined here,
one more match! One more match! One more match! One more match! One more match!
50 years ago, perhaps it was your parents or grandparents that were here, but tonight I feel like they're all here because this wonderful reception you gave me brought me back to the days. Thank you. Thank you. This is indeed an extremely special night for me. Very, very special night. If I may, I have to speak to you about certain things that are very important to me in my life. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to my good friend Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's a guy. We became good friends, as he said, in the 60s and 70s, and then, of course, my career was coming to an end, and of course, after winning everything there was to win in bodybuilding, he went into acting, and he became a big champion in the movie industry, and box office champion, and then not only that, but the guy goes into politics, twice governor of California. Amazing. Not bad for a young fella coming from Austria. I think if the rule changed in America to where you didn't have to be American born, this was a serious candidate to become president of the United States. But, so I thank him for making, this night is so special for me for a number of reasons. And I want to thank him for making it also very special for him. As he told me last month in Columbus, when I was inducted into the International Sports Hall of Fame, he says, and of course speaking to Triple H, who made the trip over there, he spoke to Arnold because he's also friends with Arnold, and Arnold said he wanted to be here tonight, and if it was possible because of his ridiculous schedule, but the man made the proper changes, and he was here tonight, and so I'm very grateful. Being inducted into an Hall of Fame, of course, was extremely special. We, as wrestlers, those in the wrestling business, to be inducted into our Hall of Fame, it means that you're getting recognition for the contribution, hopefully, you made to the game, for everything, you know, that you're given, that you tried so hard, the best you possibly could, and at the end you get rewarded with something like that, the Hall of Fame. But in my case, I'm grateful for this great honor of the Hall of Fame. But to happen here in Madison Square Garden, that is... I have a quiet history in this building, and I'd like to share a little bit of it with you. For one thing, I'm extremely proud that I headlined Madison Square Garden more time than anyone in the history of Madison Square Garden. I'm very proud. I can hardly believe it when I tell you this, and it was 50 years ago that I became the Worldwide Wrestling Federation champion in Madison Square Garden. 50 years ago. How many of you were even born yet then?
I wasn't. I think.
It's a long, long time ago. It was in Madison Square Garden that the HVAC Scotland, nobody had ever been able to pick him up, and I said, given the opportunity, I will lift him. And I did in Madison Square Garden, and let me tell you, I thought that night the roof was going to fly off the garden. I've never seen the people went so absolutely wild when I picked him up in the air. I could tell you many other great events that happened in the garden, but I must tell you how grateful I am of what the garden did for me. Because, you know, in this country, in every city, we have beautiful arenas everywhere. And they may be bigger than the garden even, or maybe even, I haven't been around because I've been retired a long time, maybe even nicer looking, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, anywhere you go around the world, the one arena that everybody knows is Madison Square Garden. And we're so fortunate, as I was, to headline Madison Square Garden for all those years. The Garden gave me the kind of publicity worldwide because, for one thing, here in New York, that's where all the magazines were published. And there was as many as 10 magazines published a month. And because of headlining in the Garden, I would appear in maybe 6 or 7 on the cover of those magazines. And those magazines would go all over the world. So that when I started, not me, when, Vince McMahon Sr., when he was getting requests from other countries about me making some appearances there, because of Madison Square Garden, I was automatically the headliner everywhere I went. Other different countries that I wrestled in, I always went as the headliner because of Madison Square Garden. So Madison Square Garden has meant an awful lot to me and did so much for me. But let me tell you, I have to go back a little bit so you'll understand why I say that I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world. For me, it could have all ended in my childhood. As Arnold mentioned, we were occupied by the Nazis. 1/3 of my town was completely wiped out when they first invaded us. Pizza Ferrado, that's right. And we took off in the middle of the night, we ran through the mountains. Those of us who made it to those mountains, we went through 14 months of sheer hell. One has to appear in those mountains and see how ferocious, for example, the winters were. No food. My father had come here when I was 3 months old. He came from America to work, always to build over there, because that's where, he planned on having our future there. But when the war came, my dad was stuck in America because they closed all passages. And my mom stuck with all the kids on the other side. So you can imagine hiding in those mountains and having the responsibility of these kids. She used to climb down that mountain, which was a 24-hour journey one way. She would sneak into our town while the Nazis were sleeping upstairs. Because we lived off our land, she would get a little sack, and she would sneak down the basement, and she would fill it with potatoes, corn, whatever she could get her hands on. And we would ration to make it last as long as possible, so Mom wouldn't have to make the journey again. One time she was captured and she barely escaped. Another time she was shot. And by the time she made it back up that mountain, she had nearly bled to death. But there was nothing stopping her, because she had children that depended on her for their survival. I tell you that I was so lucky because up in that mountain we buried a lot of people because of the very old, the very young, because of lack of food, because of the bitter winter, because of sicknesses. And if the war had gone on a couple more months, I would have been up in that mountain as well, and nobody would have ever heard the name of Bruno Sammartino because I came down with a terrible sickness. It was diagnosed later that I had rheumatic fever. And for 3 years, 3.5 years, I was a very, very sick child. And when the Germans finally moved out, and the Allies came into our town, we were able to come back. And when the Red Cross came through to check on the sick, the wounded and whatever, they told my mother to be prepared because this kid will not be here tomorrow. I was given a death sentence, but my mother, she said, I lost 2 children. I lost a sister named Anita, and I lost a brother named Sandrino. And my mother said, I will not lose another child. She did. As you can see, I'm still here. My mother put leeches on my body. The theory was that leeches take the poison blood out of your system. She would boil water and lift me up because I couldn't stand or walk and make me inhale the fumes. I don't know if there was anything to that thing, to those remedies, but all I know is with her love and care, I lived. And in fact, in 1947, I was supposed to come to America, and I stopped my family from coming because I couldn't pass a physical because I was so deathly sick. We had to wait 3 more years. In 1950, we finally came here. And as grateful as we were to arrive to America, things weren't really all that rosy for us, because when we came here, couldn't speak a word of English, so we started going to school, the language school, my brother and I. But as you know, kids, not today, we hear so much about bullying. Well, my brother was healthier than I, because he had been sick. He defended himself well enough that the bullies laid off. In my case, I fought back too, but in my weakened condition, I always got the worst of it, and I always came home with a bloody nose or a black eye or a cut lip or whatever. But a friend who felt sorry for me, he introduced me to the Y. And when I went to the Y, I kid you not, I couldn't lift a feather, I was so weak. But somehow, that night, when I was walking home, I said, there's something very positive and good that's going to come out of this. And I kept going, and I kept going. Pretty soon, I was an 84-pound bag of bones and skin. And pretty soon, I started seeing little muscles start popping up in the body. And that inspired me, and it encouraged me to work harder and work harder. And when I got husky enough, I joined the wrestling team in school. And I loved both sports, and I kept training. And to tell you how hard I trained and what I accomplished during that time, I came here 83, 84 pounds. 10 years later, I was 275 pounds, and I was considered one of the strongest men in the world. When I turned professional, I had, I think, a pretty great career of 25 years on this. For a quarter of a century, I was in the business. And let me tell you, I saw these wrestlers that are here now that are experiencing what I'm going to tell you about. Wrestling is a tough business, not only because of what goes on in the ring, and the hard blows that we take, that the human body really wasn't meant for that stuff. But more than that, you know, baseball, football, basketball, hockey, they're seasonal sports, so maybe 6 months out of the year. But in our day, it's all year round. And if you're lucky enough to make it to the top, as we say, the demands come greater, and therefore all year round we're traveling all over. My first 8 years reign as champion, I used to wrestle 7 days one week and 6 days the following week. I would get 2 days out of the month to go see my family. And that's not very healthy for family life. But let me tell you, I was also extremely lucky. I married my high school sweetheart, and 54 years later, we're still married. Yes, indeed. I've been a very, very lucky man. I have much to be grateful for. And but those 24 years, 25 years, as these guys can tell you, they take a great toll on your body. In fact, might have been even a little tougher in my day because they had those crazy boxing rings, and those things were like concrete. They had to be reinforced with steel posts underneath because fighters, they would lose their footings. And when you're getting body slammed and all these other crazy things that you go through, after time and time and time, year after year after year, you pay a price. And God knows I'll pay one too, because after 25 years when I retired, I was happy that day had come, because I had spent much too many years away. And now I look forward to being with my family, with my wife and my children and so forth. Unfortunately, I was hurting very, very bad, because anybody who knows me from my era, I had some serious injuries. And I was a guy who wouldn't even take an aspirin or any kind of a painkiller or anything like that. I just sucked it up, as the old saying goes, and I kept on going. But that reached a point where I just felt like the body couldn't continue. And I'm starting to I had to start thinking of getting out. But there again, I was such such a very lucky guy. Because with all these injuries, I was in pain 24 hours a day. Happy to be home, but suffering all the time. And then, you know, there were two gentlemen there. They've come from Pittsburgh. One of these gentlemen, he's involved with the WWE and their wellness program and drug testing and all that. A renowned neurosurgeon, brilliant man. And there's another gentleman here who's a great friend of mine that has been taking care of me for many years. He's a doctor, Dr. Frank Costa. These two gentlemen work miracles. They saved, I don't know how many lives with their magic because they're so great at what they do in the medical field. And they made so much better quality of life for so many people. And when they took me on with all these things, I required over maybe 10 or maybe 8 major surgeries. But today, I'm an old guy. I'm almost 78 years old in a couple of months. And yet, because of these guys, these men that were so gifted, here I am, an old guy, and I still train 6 days a week, and I'm feeling great shape, and I owe it all to them for all that they were able to do for me. There's so many people that of course, I can't name, but I would like to show my gratitude to a lot of people. For one thing, so many people came from Pittsburgh because they wanted to be here. Some came by plane, some drove here, some took the Greyhound bus, and some came by train, but they're here, and I'm so very grateful to them. I have friends from Washington, D.C. who called me when they found out I was announced to appear in Hall of Fame here. I have from Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Boston, and Florida. They all wanted to be here, and they're all here for me, and I'm so grateful to them. But let me tell you something, that I'm mostly grateful and I say this from the bottom of my heart. You know, in this business, if you have the opportunity to become a so-called headliner, a promoter looks at you, perhaps he sees that there's some talent there, he sees how the fans react to you, and they give you a shot at being a headliner. Now, how do you stay on as a headliner? Well, if people come and fill those seats, you get to be a headliner again. If people don't come and fill those seats, your headlining days could be very short. I was one of the luckiest guys in the world because when I was given that opportunity, the fans, all the fans, they come out. And as they came out, they kept me as the headliner. And then again, because I headlined in the Garden so much, I was a headliner when I went to all the different countries that I wrestled to, always as a headliner. It was just so amazing because the Garden went everywhere. And promoters would call Vince McMahon and say to him, Vince, I say, I'd like to have the service of your champion in San Francisco, Los Angeles. And I would travel to these places. And I was fortunate everywhere because of the Garden, the publicity from the Garden, and magazines. I'd go to California.